Muhammad Umar Farooq biological video. Please make sure to subscribe, like and share. Ask the question for answer and comment about the artwork. You can also answer question to each other for solving the problem. So here we will discuss about the endocrinology. So the overview of the basic endocrinology we will discuss here. So the endocrine is the secretion of the cell into the blood. So the cell will secrete the enzyme or something into the blood for giving the signal to the another cell. For example of the endocrine gland is the insulin and glucagon. When sugar will be high, that's insulin will be produced for giving the response to entry of the glucose into the cell. So that is the signaling process which that is sensitized by the cell receptor of insulin. On the other hand, the glucagon which that is release the glucose from the cell, from the liver and muscle. So the glucagon secretion of the pancreas and pituitary gland, thymus gland, thyroid gland as well. So here I am trying to understand the whole concept of the endocrinology. So here is the digestive system which that's contain a duodenum, stomach, pancreas, and that is duodenum is here. So here I will draw a structure which the pancreas contain endocrine part is known as the islet of Langerhans. So this islet of Langerhans contain alpha cell, beta cell and gamma cell. So this beta cell produce gamma is not here but delta cell. So remember about that. Gamma cell is not present, but alpha, beta and delta cell. Delta cell produced somatostatin which that is used for the growth, and beta cell produce the insulin which that is promote the anabolic effect which that facilitate the sugar to inside of the cell. So that's why the metabolism will be occur, and that's anabolic part. On the other hand, the alpha cell which that produce the glucagon, that's glucagon is the opposite action against the beta cell, against the insulin. So the glucagon will release the glucose from the second messenger of signals. So first messenger is the glucagon and second is the cyclic AMP. So next video we will discuss about that things. So here is the blood vessel which contain a high sugar. So remember, so the beta cell which is sensed by the different mechanism, which that is the mechanism here we will not discuss. So the beta cell will be produced by the stimulation due to the sugar to produce insulin. So the insulin is produced from the pancreas that's go inside of the blood. So inside of the blood, that is the insulin will be bind with the receptor of muscle cells. So this receptor is bind with here, and that means when binding as a ligand, that's bind with the receptor, insulin receptor, to facilitate the glucose. So there's the facilitate diffusion of the glucose inside of the cell, and that is due to the insulin. So that is the endocrine system. Endocrine means the glucose, for example, secretion is released into the blood first and then enter into the bind with the cell. So on the other hand, the exocrine gland is also, exocrine secretion is also produced from the pancreas. So here first of all we will discuss about the exocrine concept. So here is the lumen of the duodenum which contain a secretion from the enzyme lipase, pancreatic amylase, as well as the secretion of bile acid which that is used for the emulsification of fat and carbohydrate digestion further of the chyme. So here is the chyme food which that is after go into the bolus, and that's bolus are into the stomach, and that's further digestion, and that's process when go into the small intestine is known as the chyme. So the chyme food is here, and here is the duodenum. So that is the enteroendocrine cell is also present, which that's give the signal to release the insulin by the production of something which that's endocrine, and that's also produce the give the signal CCK toward the toward the gallbladder to contract for fat digestion. So the acidic medium is also stimulate that things. So here is there is the exocrine system. Exocrine mean exo mean outside, crine mean secretion. So that is here is the neuroendocrine hormone is also released as an endocrine system. So the neuro mean nerve cell which that is attached with the blood and that secrete the some hormone, neuroendocrine hormone, which that is go into the blood first and that's give the signal to another part of the cell. For example, the pituitary gland, for example hypothalamus, which stimulate the by the neuroendocrine system, the neuroendocrine hormone released from the neurons of the neuron of the hypothalamus. So that's a release and that stimulate to produce the pituitary gland. That pituitary gland will be stimulate, and this stimulation of the pituitary gland, here is the cell of the pituitary gland, which that's pituitary gland which that is bind with this neuroendocrine hormone which that release into the blood and that's bind to give a first ligand. This is the first ligand and that's produce the cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP is the second messenger. So the first messenger is the neuroendocrine hormone. So when bind to stimulate the secretion, and this secretion will go into the blood vessel. So that's blood vessel is here, and that's for example thyroid stimulating hormone will be released from the pituitary gland, and this thyroid stimulating hormone will be endocrine hormone which stimulate the thyroid hormone. So these thyroid hormone stimulation to release the triiodothyronine and thyroxine, as well as another is the calcitonin. So these go into the blood and that's go into the target of tissue. For example, thyroid stimulating hormone is present. So these T3 and T4 is stimulate to is the first ligand, first messenger to increase the second messenger intracellularly inside of the cell to release the ATP or some metabolic effect, growth, etc. So the pituitary gland is the smaller lobe, two lobe like structure which that is a master gland, is the anterior adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Neurohypophysis means which that is stimulated by the neurons, is the neuroendocrine system. So here is the brain which contain a pituitary gland and hypothalamus is here, which that is mean that here is the pituitary gland. So on the other hand, important to know that the amazing thing is more and more that the paracrine signaling is also present. That is known as the paracrine hormone. For example, one tissue which that stimulate the ligands, and that ligand will be bind with the another tissue of the receptor of the ligand to stimulate that create the secretion. So this secretion will be produced. So this secretion is a different type as compared to the endocrine system. So here we will discuss about the endocrinology. So the endocrinology is not a part of this paracrine signaling. So that's for just understanding with the concept and to understand the endocrinology. Endo mean inside of the blood. So here's the para mean beside. Beside mean the side of the tissue, the one tissue which that stimulate to another. For example, the heart muscle contain a cardiac cell that is known as the myocytes, and these cardiac cells which that is bind and one by one cell will be contract. All cells will be contract by these ligands. So just like this. So here we will discuss about the whole detail of endocrinology. So that here is the basically the female which contain a different type of glands. On the other hand, here is the male which that contain also different type of gland. So the differentiation of the male and female according to the endocrinology is the reproductive system. So the ovary and testes. So the testes of the male which produce testosterone, on the other hand ovary which that is produce the estrogen and progesterone, which that is stimulated by the pituitary gland. So whole detail we will discuss about, and next video we will discuss about the whole mechanism of the reproductive organ. So here we are not going to briefly overview, that is the basically just overview. So here is the different thymus gland and thyroid gland are present is in the neck region, and heart region contain a thymus gland and pancreas which that produce insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, and adrenal gland which that are situated on the upper part of the kidney and both side. On the other hand, that is the here is the duodenum, and that's here is the ovary and testes. So here is the testes. So first of all we will discuss about the male reproductive organs. So next is we will discuss the basic overview of that things. So first of all we should understand the pituitary gland, which that is the primary stimulator of the reproductive organ. So here is the so that is the also parathyroid gland, which that is back side of the thyroid gland. So that is produce the calcitonin, which that is used for the calcium regulation. So here is the pituitary gland, which that was the situated in the brain region. I have told you in the previous. So here is the hypothalamus, and below the thalamus is the hypothalamus. Hypo mean below, and pituitary gland is the two types. Adenohypophysis is the anterior lobe, and neurohypophysis is the posterior lobe, and the middle lobe is also present, which that is the basically fused. So somatotropin releasing factor is released from the hypothalamus. Gonadotropin releasing hormone, which that released from the gonadotropin. So the which that stimulate the pituitary gland, and basically thyroid stimulating factor, adrenocorticotropin releasing factor, which that's all is come from the hypothalamus, and this stimulate the one by one that we will discuss, and that's anterior pituitary gland. So here's the anterior adenohypophysis, which that is pituitary gland is the anterior part, is the big part that's produced by the stimulation of the different. So the somatostatin will also produce, which that is growth hormone to give a growth of bone, muscle, tissue, and cell division. On the other hand, here is the corticotropic releasing hormone. So the corticotropic releasing hormone, which that is adrenocorticotropic releasing hormone, which that stimulate the adrenal gland. So the adrenal gland is situated on the upper part of the kidney, and here is the basically pituitary gland is here. So now we will discuss about the, please concentration remain concentrated for this this lesson about these things. So here is the thyroid stimulating hormone will produce T3 T4 as well as calcitonin. So here is the follicle stimulating hormone or gonadotropic hormone or interstitial cell stimulating hormone, which stimulate to the ovary as well as testes, to ovary to produce estrogen and to give a ovulation. So the primary follicle will be developed in the secondary follicle. Next video we will discuss. So here is the sperm production and testosterone production. So the testosterone is produced and thus give the male secondary character, for example beard, deep voice, and that's convert into the dihydrotestosterone. This dihydrotestosterone will be give the secondary sexual character of male, as well as female, which that is the estrogen is the secondary sexual character for the making a breast increase, enlargement, as well as another part, for example the shape of the body. So on the other hand, here we will discuss about the adrenal gland. So the adrenal gland contain a adrenal medulla as well as adrenal cortex. So the whole detail we will not discuss. So corticosteroids is produced from the adrenal cortex, and the example is the cortisol, corticosterone, androgen, testosterone. So the cortisol is used for the sympathetic nervous system, and corticosterone is used for the glucocorticoid and mineralocorticoid, which that is used for the balance of the minerals. On the other hand, androgen is the same like a testosterone or estrogen production. So the testosterone is also produced from the female through the adrenal, but slightly less. On the other hand, the male is also produced estrogen, which that's come from the testosterone, which that's convert into the estrogen. On the other hand, the testosterone is produced from the pituitary gland, adrenal gland. So here's the adrenaline and noradrenaline will be produced from the inner medullary adrenal medulla. So that's produce the stress hormone. Adrenaline is known as stress hormone, which that's used for the sympathetic nervous system fight and flight response, and that is the sympathetic nervous system used to muscle contraction, fast and shivering thermogenesis create and fast heartbeat due to the more ATP production due to the increase of the glucose from the glucocorticoid hormone as well as mineralocorticoid for use for the hair. So the adrenaline and noradrenaline used for the specific site for the muscle contraction and relaxation. So the blood pressure will be increased by the vessel constriction. So the basically constriction of blood vessel is due to the noradrenaline. On the other hand, adrenaline is used for the specific site to relax, for example, digestive system. So the glucose will be high, and this high glucose is due to the glucagon interaction. So the glucagon will be interact and thus produce the glucagon more, and insulin will be suppressed. For example, the sympathetic nervous system stimulate it to glycogenolysis, produce the glycogen to glucose formation. So on the other hand, that is the sympathetic nervous system to increase the glucose for using it. So the increase of glucose with the normal as compared to the normal range of the blood glucose. So that is the adrenaline, which that is more increased. So the adrenaline, not noradrenaline, adrenaline will relax the digestive system to prevent the digestion. So relaxation is due for the prevention of digestive system. So the stop of the digestion while the constriction by the noradrenaline into the blood vessels. So here I am drawing the again pituitary gland to understand the better. So here is the osmoreceptor in the hypothalamus, which that is the neurosecretory cell of the which that neurosecretory cell of made up of neurons, which that stimulate to produce antidiuretic hormone. So the same mechanism is here, which that is used for it. So sympathetic nervous system is also used for it, but here we will not discuss about the sympathetic nervous system. So here is the antidiuretic hormone will be increased and used for the constriction of the blood vessel is known as vasoconstriction. So the antidiuretic hormone is also produced. So this antidiuretic hormone is produced basically from the adrenal gland, that is the antidiuretic hormone, which will constrict the blood vessel to prevent the loss of water as well as reabsorption of water, which that is here I am drawing the glomerulus, and here is the kidney contain a nephron. So that's reabsorption into the backflow of the water into the blood vessel. So that's constriction will be occur to prevention of the filtration, glomerular filtration. So the glomerular filtration rate will be decreased. So this is not a basically a sympathetic nervous system. It is used for the increase the blood blood pressure. So when increase the blood pressure, that's a negative feedback mechanism will be also enhanced. So oxytocin produced from the posterior pituitary gland, which that is posterior pituitary gland is the oxytocin produced, and this oxytocin is the neuroendocrine hormone also, which there's quick response to the quick response and oxytocin, which that is decrease the progesterone level in blood, and that is why that decrease the progesterone level and increase the basically distension of the cervix. So the distension of the cervix is used for the labor of the delivery of baby for the fetus. So the delivery of fetus. So here is the cervix which that relate to release or deliver the baby or fetus. So on the other hand, the parturition and suckling, that's the milk ejection, is due to the oxytocin, which that is the property is for use the vasodilation. So the vasodilation is due to the oxytocin, while the antidiuretic hormone is used for the vasoconstriction. So the melanophore stimulating hormone is stimulated from the middle of the median lobe of the pituitary, which that is used to go into the melanocyte of the skin to increase the melanin pigment of the skin. So the light is stimulated to it. Here is the skin. So the next here we will discuss about the hair is thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland is butterfly-like structure from the front, and here is the back side view. So here is the larynx, thyroid gland, as well as here is the back side is the esophagus, and there's esophageal pipe, and here is the trachea, which used for the breathing, and esophagus is used for the swallowing of the food to go into the stomach. And here is the parathyroid gland. So the parathyroid gland is the special character for it. So the thyroid gland will be produced the important three types of hormone, which that is the endocrine hormone. And first here is the blood vessel, which that here is the thyroid gland. So the back side is the parathyroid gland. So important to know that here is the calcitonin hormone will be produced, as well as the thyroxine. Thyroxine, for example, that is known as the tetraiodothyronine, which contain a 4 molecule of iodine. On the other hand, the triiodothyronine, which that contain a 3 molecule of iodine, which that's attached from this hormone. So next video we will discuss about the thyroid gland with the metabolism and their physiology, and that video contain a whole explanation. So here is not. So that's the calcitonin is hormone which that is stimulate of the bone and to increase the calcium, and when increase the calcium and phosphate into the blood, that will be negative feedback mechanism. So on the other hand, here is the basically early growth, rapid growth, and sexual maturation is due to the thyroxine and triiodothyronine, which that is used to increase the sexuality, and that's a developmental cases which that is enhance the development and growth. So that's the metabolic effect of the child, metabolic effect of the younger human, which contain thyroxine and triiodothyronine will be increased. And on the other hand, that is the during the effect of the cold, that is stimulate to increase more positive effect. And on the other hand, the hunger time, when we will hungry, that is stimulate on the to increase the constriction of triiodothyronine and thyroxine. On the other hand, one more thing is the somatotrophin. Somatotrophin is the hormone which that's bind with the growth hormone to increase the growth. So here is the also glucose will be metabolized by this increase the constriction of thyroxine and triiodothyronine to produce ATP and heat. So this all thing is related to the endocrinology, and that's endocrine system we are discussing here. Remember about that. So here is the parathyroid gland, which that's the four two pairs of parathyroid glands are present, which produce the parathyroid hormone. It is also known as parathormone. So this parathormone is also used for give the positive feedback to increase the regulation of calcium and phosphate. When calcium will be increased, so the negative feedback to prevention of the parathormone, and the vice versa. So important to know that when increase, that means the low level of calcium. When calcium level and phosphate level will be high into the blood, that will be inhibit. So the calcium and phosphate is important for muscle contraction, and phosphate is used for the DNA formation, and phosphate is also used for the ATP production, ADP to ATP, and that's also produced as a cyclic AMP, that is the second messenger. So the phosphate and phosphorus and calcium is important for it, and also used for the bone density and bone storage. For the bone formation is calcium and phosphorus. So the deposition into the bone, that is the that is the that is the storage part. So next we will discuss about the digestive endocrine system. So digestive gastrointestinal endocrine system. So here is the esophagus, and here is the cardiac sphincter muscle. So here is the wall of the stomach, which contain a submucosa and mucosa. So that is the gastric tissue here. So that is gastric tissue, and contain here is the duodenum. When food are present in the stomach, it is known as bolus. When food go into the duodenum, it is known as the chyme. So here is the mucosa, which that is a mucosa secrete a hormone, which that is known as exocrine system. So the exocrinally will be secrete the hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen, which that pepsinogen will be activated by the constriction of high number of HCl, hydrogen chloride, which that is the acid, hydrochloric acid, sorry. So the hydrochloric acid. So here is the chyme, that is the acid food, suppose. So the food is chyme, which that is acidic. So the increase the acidity into the duodenum, which stimulate the production of the bile, lipase acid, cholic acid, bile salts, as well as cholesterol from the bile duct through the gallbladder, as well as pancreas is here. So this is the exocrine system, not endocrine system. But we are educating about the learning of the endocrinology, so that is why important things to understand. So first of all, we will discuss the endocrine system from here, which that is the enteroendocrine cell are present in the mucosal cell. So here is the gastric pit. The gastric pit secretes the hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. So the pepsinogen is released from the chief cell, while the parietal cell produce the hydrochloric acid. And on the other hand, the white color shows that the enteroendocrine cell. So here is the parietal cell will be secrete the hydrochloric acid, not pepsinogen. So remember. On the other hand, here is the chief cell, which that is secrete the pepsinogen, not a hydrochloric acid. So here I am drawing. So the here is the enteroendocrine cell, which that enteroendocrine cell which stimulate and release the secretion into the blood. So that is known as the endocrine system. So the endocrine hormone. So here the pepsinogen will be produced from the chief cell, and hydrochloric acid produced from the parietal cell, not chief cell. So that is here is the opposite, but because I draw the diagram is not correct. So here is the blood vessel, okay, and enteroendocrine cell will be secreted due to the increase of the glucose level into the stomach or duodenum. And here is the beta cell of the pancreas. So glucagon like peptides 1 and glucagon like peptide is secreted into the blood from the enteroendocrine cells, and this secretion into the blood is known as the endocrine system, and this bind with the glucagon like peptide receptor of the beta cell, and calcium is also enter into cell, and that's the insulin release from the first messenger is GIP, and the second is the cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP will allow to release the insulin by the different mechanism. Here we will not discuss about the whole mechanism. So that's all thing is done. Next video we will discuss about the adrenal gland, thyroid gland, pituitary gland, and some gastric gland, that is also enteroendocrine system we will discuss. So that is the here is the overview about the endocrinology. If you like this video, please subscribe my channel and share this video. Thanks. Bye.